we've missed that genius about comedy.
I just woke up. It was just random ramblings. Anyway, just to explain what Graham just said, I was just commenting on viewing the video that Graham sent about Kate Hill and who was it? The vlogger was Seth somebody or other, and he was staying in some Oakland apartment that was super tiny but had all these little tchotchkes and knickknacks around that were kind of juxtaposed in funny ways, and that reminded him of Friedrich Schiller, and that reminded me of my philosophy class with Ian Hacking and my final paper on creativity and my final comment about comedians being some of the smartest people in the world. And I admire them for their ability to think in real time, interact in real time. Oh, somebody got in trouble. Oh.
Yeah, sorry, it's my dog. He's crazy.
Yeah. Man, I'm constantly every day having something having to do with these dogs because they constantly chew things up. Golden retrievers are retrievers in a sense that they always have to have something in their mouth. One or two of them always have something in their mouth. And if they can't find something like a toy, they have to go into the trash. That's one of the only misbehaviors of Goldens is that little habit right there. Anyway, I think I lost my train of thought.
I'm just going to put my earphones in so I can speak and turn the camera around. So that's where I am right now.
Is this, let's see, this is a different farm? This is Spain, right?
I'm now in Spain. There are 2 geese down there. And geese make this wonderful noise. If they can listen, hear me, make some noise, geese. It's like, it's wonderful.
So we're in
sort of like monastery type room.
It's actually very clean.
It's about 45 minutes southwest of Barcelona. This is a lovely, I like this view is lovely. So in Spain they have thousands of macias, which are these very large houses that were basically the center of communities, and because they had a well. So there's another view. So Barcelona is maybe 45 minutes that way. The sea is over there. That's a really old car I'm allowed to use. But apart from that, I'm the only person here. Seriously, I mean, in this whole area, I'm the only human being. And all the way down there, whatever. So we have a friend on the wall here. So, yeah. This is a former glass factory. It's a former glass factory, made the glass for the wine bottles for the whole region. So it was a central place. It's very well known, a very important place for the whole region.
That's awesome.
And I'm now gonna. I don't like. Hear me again?
Yes, easily.
Yeah. So I thought it was a community with more than the people that are here. So it's only 3 of us.
You and the 2 geese?
3 of us, 2 geese and 12 chickens. But there's one woman who lives down the road who's a Colombian medicine woman who is a Colombian. I don't know if you've met these Colombian women whose teeth are so white. They're so clear in their eyes and their being. And she does medicines. She's like all the yoga, all the music. She's a singer, and she has a whole troupe of other Colombian men and Chilean men, Ecuadorian men, a lot of men around who do music and gongs and things. So I had a gong bath on Friday night with all these Chileans and Colombians and playing guitars. So from being in Germany with this very Germanic, structured, organized way of living to being with the Colombians and their music, very interesting contrast. there's much more of, it's like people don't drink alcohol or things like that. It's more like a bit more, more pot and more little roll-ups and
I think you
chatting.
froze.
Like, am I moving again?
No, I froze.
Oh, you froze.
Kayla froze for me.
Oh, Caleb froze, so I was still ahead.
I could
So
still
there's,
hear you and see you moving.
so I would say, and it's
Kayla, you
interesting that,
froze for me, FYI.
so for me, it's been looking at collaboration, but it's also about culture. So I'm moving from culture to culture. So I'm moving from not a Germanic culture. It was more of an Amish, Steiner, Waldorf type approach to living, to being here, which is very much, I mean, the very simple act that you hug in the morning and you hug at night. That's just a simple thing, but it's part of their culture here, which makes a big difference. And also, there's something about the guy in the next room is South America. He's from Argentina, and South Americans have, I find, a very different warmth to them. They're just warm people. They have this, you know, I don't know. There's something warm about their heart. You know, the Germans maybe, no offense to Germans, maybe have warm hearts, but they're more sort of in their heads, more thinking, more up here. Whereas there's a lot more movement, and even the movement, they're just always sort of about to dance. And then what was interesting was there was a barbecue yesterday, and there was 12 of us, and that's a kind of a collaboration. You've got to collaborate to create the barbecue. You've got to create the atmosphere. You've got to create the food. You've got to organize yourselves to do things. And what I found really interesting, one for me, was because I do speak Spanish, but not perfectly. But when they found out I couldn't speak perfect Spanish or Catalan, I was largely ignored. So I became irrelevant context for their thing. Yeah. Only when I entered in and asked questions, was curious, did they respond. But if I didn't say anything, they just ignored me. So I found that in Germany, when I didn't speak with a German, I didn't ask questions, again, they would not realize I was there. So it's actually I've been very able to observe more easily what's happening there. And I came up with something that I didn't realize before around the subject of curiosity. It's a bit linked to what I said in the chat before. I think, Kayla, you like what I said regarding, being able to fully collaborate and be open when in the background, this, well, for me, yeah, it's a pain about the way the world is and what's going on, or anxiety, or not knowing what's going on, or not comfortable financially. It's hard that backdrop is always there, and it affects what happens. So if I'm being paid, collaboration is really quite easy. You just have to do it, and someone's there to be paid to facilitate, fine. If it's not, usually, if you're collaborating, it's because you're passionate about something, you care about it, you're giving your free time to it. And often people have personal issues, problems, struggling in the background, which will affect the collaboration thing. And the other, so there's one, what is curiosity? I'd love to explore that. Curiosity, to explore that. And also, it comes out again and again for me, is authority and status and power structures. It's always there. It's very difficult to talk about, I think, and status and power and authority, and it's always there, and it's not really talked about. So I've entered this other community called Seeds, which is a new financial system, alternative currency, and it's interesting. But again, inside this, there is authority, control. They want to be collaborative. They want to be community orientated. But already people are chasing for position like ambassador or a role. So I've got a role, I've got authority, I'm in a new world. I didn't have authority or any role or status in that world, the capitalist world. I didn't want to play in that game. I've got a new game, but I want the status still. I want to feel as if I'm somebody. There's the security to be somebody, and then I can contribute, and then I can talk about things. And that led me to think about in Germany, the owner was the authority was the couple because they own the land. It's their thing, so they're always in charge. And I don't. My status is as a worker. Here, he says, just do what you want. You're free to sleep all day, as long as you talk to me a bit in English. Que pasa? No problem. So there's a complete freedom here to be myself and to find a way to do that. That's just the way it is. So I'm much more relaxed here. I don't have to do what he wants me to do in order to be here. At the same time, I find that there's not curiosity in who I am. Who are you? You've come from where? Wow, you're from Scotland. That's interesting. So 10 people at a barbecue, no interest. So I don't know if that's, I'm calling it World 1, World 2, and World 3. Have I talked about this before, Sam? So if I say very loosely,
it's familiar, but you did it in like 5 seconds, okay. And probably before Kayla participated.
So I find a way to explain the story of these times very simply, so I can explain it to a teenager.
5-year-old. Kayla, anything on your mind this morning? Okay, Graham.
I think it's also a bit unfair, isn't it? Because you guys are just waking up, getting into the day, and I've been at it for, it's now 4 o'clock, so lots, different energy.
You can sort of see we're still a little bit groggy. Huh?
Yeah, what? Curiosity? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're about to say World 1, World 2, World 3?
So if World 1 we call, like, people call it Game A, it's the world of, you know, capitalism, extractive capitalism, that whole game, the Western world and most of China now, Africa, you know, coming into this industrial revolution, all that stuff. And the winners of that game, winners in that world are the ones who are, you know, they've got immense willpower and focused on something, like the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, the Bezos, that kind of, if you're like that guy, you know, that was that energy. World 2 are the people within World 1 who look after the people that are broken from all of that. Doctors, nurses, social workers, therapists, anything spiritual, anything to, you know, alternative. But basically, fix them up, they go back into World 1. So those two are codependent. I remember a friend, just as an anecdote about that, a friend of mine did a talk to the National Health Service in Scotland and said, you know, if the National Health Service is a free service to provide people with care if they're injured or whatever happens to them, that's one central purpose. If the purpose of the health service is to promote people taking responsibility for their own health, becoming healthy, therefore they won't need as many doctors, nurses, everything else, social workers, whatever. And we sort society out, the structures, that's a very different thing. So some people loved that and a lot of people hated it because their jobs and status and life and livelihood depended upon people being sick. The sicker people are, the more GDP we have, the more, so they're codependent and we need to be sick in order for that to work. So people say, we need World 3, we have to create World 3 where a lot more healthy communities, culture, regenerative cultures, the land is being looked after, we're collaborating well, everyone gets on with each other, there's harmony, peace, all the violence goes. It's not a utopia, but it's much more harmonious and everyone's getting along and we have to create that world and someone's got to fund it. How do we fund that? How do we create these new worlds? And so on, so on, so on. And I find that people in World 1 are usually curious about themselves. And that's it. They just want to know how you can fit into their world. How can I sell you something, or how can you basically support me to get what I want? The World 2 are looking after those people, listening a lot, listening, hearing, supporting, fixing, saying, yes, I understand, giving them back a sense of curiosity in that other person. And then into world three, it's like, can we be really curious about each other and what's going on, and learn and study together and support each other in our education? So it's I think world three for me is rooted in the desire to really help the other optimize your life. So I want to help Sam become more Samish and wonderful, and this. I want to help Kayla become more Kayla, and you want to help Graham become more Graham, and so on. And if we're doing that for each other and reflecting back, it's lovely to receive that, you know, because the last thing I did in Germany was I played a game of Now, one of my workshops that I've done. Very simple, because they were tired. So I said, well, let's play an appreciation game. We played an appreciation game for each other, and they hadn't appreciated each other for years. And they actually wrote down, I really appreciate this about you. So, well, why didn't you tell me that? I've been here 6 weeks. You've never told me that you appreciate these things. And because I had to set it up, you know, that's something I'd love to have had every day or once a week. So there's something about the host of a space to be consciously always looking at the well-being of everybody there, right? Are you okay? How can we help you today? How can we help this? That's more important. Let's collaborate on optimizing what's happening in Sam's life or Kayla's life, giving that attention, then we move on. Two more examples and I'll be quiet for a bit. I entered Joe Brewer's community, which is a regenerative agriculture mainly, or regenerative culture. He's in South America. He's now got 2,000 in the community. And I went in, I looked at things, I wrote things down, and it's basically all him. He's the force, and everyone's just following and listening, asking questions. They think he's a guy who's got always energy and drive. He writes very well. He's got connections. He's working with the UN. So people are just following that. It feels a bit cultish. There's no community. In Seeds, I find it's a mess. They're trying to build something that's great. They're trying to, but there's no community. There's no. Can we just spend time to say hello and get to know each other? Yeah, and therefore, community, collaboration, culture. How do these three interact? And maybe curiosity as well. There we go. And if I was some sort of marketing guru, I would take the 4 Cs and call it the 4 Cs, put a trademark on it, and go and sell it to multinationals for 10,000 a week. You know, people do that kind of stuff, and I just find that it's the mindset of, can we optimize each other's lives? And if that's the intention, it's actually quite easy to collaborate. You're on mute.
Muted, Sam.
Yes. So that's a bunch that we could riff off on. Kayla, you want to start, or how do you want to handle this?
I like, Graham, what you said about feeling safe, a sense of feeling yourself. That I feel like that's the foundation of connection, is for a person to feel like they can be themselves. Like, for instance, I just woke up. I'm still in my my nightgown, but I feel safe talking to you guys, and therefore I will talk to you guys. There's also that sense of connection, and it's a shame. It's a shame that so many people don't have that element of appreciation to express. And it's a lot of what the corporate world is like these days. If you just, like, whenever I go to, an elder's house, the first thing they ask is, how are you doing? How are your kids? how is your life? You know, upon entering their house, it's about me. And then we get together and we discuss whatnot. I mean, it's not always going to be about me, but you know what I'm saying. You know, it's appreciating, caring for one another. And then it's much more easier to be receptive to the ideas of collaboration. Like I think I've mentioned this before. One of these days, I would love to collaborate with Sam. He plays the violin and I dance. Both of our passions, well, I'm sure we have more than one, but both of our passions fuse together to create this beautiful collaboration. And who knows if it's going to be beautiful, but it's the beginning of a very simple, fundamental, foundational collaboration. So, you know, safety, connection, collaboration. And those are my thoughts.
I'm laughing. Sorry, I'm laughing because Sam and I have got this beard. Now. My beard's getting longer, so we're doing this. As you're, I got a bit of beard envy. We can send you one. You can get that.
That's my hair.
You got much longer hair than we've got. You know, I don't yet compare.
Well, when my hair's longer, we can do that again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate. So if you do that a lot, I appreciate that comment. Yeah. I think. I don't know what it is about the being in, as you say, the elders being interested in you. You know, interested or curiosity. Maybe because they're safe, they've got time. So my elder is Nigel, who's in Andros, who I spoke to this morning for an hour and a half, and all he does is ask me questions and clarify and offer. That's interesting. Have you thought about that? And I say, and how are you? And he says, oh, I'm fine. And I know he is, because he's like retired and just completely chilled, because he's safe. He's got all his money covered. He's completely happy. He's made it. He's out. He's got all the time in the world to listen to me. And I said, why do you listen to me? He said, because you're really interesting to talk to. So I'm his entertainment, really. So that makes it really easy to connect. The thing about what Kayla was saying about I think if we look at things from in terms of if there's warmth, if there's a sense of warmth between people, like I find this with South Americans, there's a lot of warmth. And so it's quite easy to connect when there's warmth. From physics point of view, if there's more heat, things are going to connect, and then it's easy to share. So that's really easy to connect with that warmth, and that safety, I think, contributes to that whole, I feel warm in myself, therefore I can just say what I want to say. And yeah, even Diego, who's the guy who's from Argentina, we collaborated a bit on making the barbecue yesterday. That was all. I was asking him why he's doing that, and can I learn how to do that? Why are you cooking this way? And tell me about your life. And then he didn't ask me any questions about me, I've got to say that. But he did feel, I could feel him, and wherever I went in the barbecue, he often would end up standing next to me, because he felt that I was giving him warmth and he wanted to. And so eventually we cleaned all the tables together. And there's a nice feeling about that. We haven't collaborated beyond that, but it felt nice. So maybe a lot of people have never experienced collaboration ever. Maybe you know what it actually feels like to be someone to be really interested in you.
But if I tie that notion back to the video that you shared, then it's more like that curiosity leads to this natural doing things together, right? This doing things together and just interacting and just, you know, maybe it's nothing deep or profound, but at least it's a connection, as you kind of been indicating, right? The other thought that came up when you were talking was that maybe people haven't collaborated in this way. I find that there's a curious use of collaboration that I wouldn't call collaboration myself personally, if there's an overtone of employment. See, when we have this employment scenario, and as you said, talk about these power structures, then it's kind of clear who has the final call, right? If you're paying me and we're doing the barbecue, you say, hey, clean up the table, I'll probably clean up the table. If I'm not being paid by you and you say clean up the table, and I could say, but wait a minute, there's a fire there that needs to be put out first. I could make that determination. I could then give you that feedback, and that might actually be a more safety inducing thing to do before I clean the table, right? Then I find that in employment scenarios, the leaders, quote unquote, managers slash bosses, in a ranking of pejorativeness, for those kind of titles, may not appreciate that proactive solution creation on the part of the employee, right? You've always heard the case, and I had a very bad CEO one time that just held up his business card and said, that's my title, okay, whenever there was any kind of a disagreement. And I thought that was weak of him, okay, to actually have to rely on title instead of being able to explain why this is a better idea than that. And so I think these bosses who fear that others might have better ideas and that they might be exposed as not the best boss, not the smartest person in the room, they're the ones who rely on titles. And if they've got the money to back them up, for whatever reason, either they inherited it or they were put there or they clawed, whatever the reason they got that title, they rely on it because they can't actually rely on the quality of their thinking and the quality of their expression and communication. So that's a rough ramble on the notion of collaboration versus the distinction I'm making between collaboration and employment. So those are a couple ideas that came to mind. I might actually pick up on this theme of safety also, because Kayla heard it in what you said. I didn't hear it quite so strongly as safety, but since Kayla heard it that way, I thought, two people in my life, two partners, have used that term safety. And initially when I heard it, I thought, oh, geez, they don't see me as more than just, a safe place. They see that, why don't they see the creativity? Why don't they see the imagination? Why don't they see the ambition? Why don't they see the blah, blah, blah? But the more time goes on and the more I understand, especially yesterday's conversation around Me Too that Kayla and I and others had, the more it seemed particularly important that women, unlike, and I'm about to say something sexist, so I want to say this carefully. I've not heard this theme of safety come across quite so prevalently from men as I have heard from women. And to me, there's both a good side and a bad side to that. The sad side is that it's such an important issue to women. And I don't have a large sample size, but the two in my life who have actually used that word valued it almost more than anything in a relationship. So to me, it wasn't that the relationship was fun. It wasn't that it was, in any sense, successful. It was that it was safe. And perhaps I devalue how women hold this notion of safety, or have in the past. But I'm just seeing it pop up more and more. Sorry for doing the free association. I don't normally do it this way, but I find myself free associating more this morning.
Well, I like that. I like the for me it's been safety and respect. That's the two things that women have asked. And I think one of my here's free association for you. One of my favorite artists is Nick Cave, and that guy is extraordinary. His music, his art, and he's very open, and one of his children tragically died in England, and he he wrote an album about it. But he said that it's very difficult living with creative people. To live, especially a creative man. If you've got a creative man next to you who's always going through this stuff and wants to create, it can be very unsettling as a partner to be around it, especially if you've got kids, because you don't know what's going to happen next. So because I've been the way I've been, it's very difficult for my partners to even to follow me or to go along because they don't feel safe. So if we come to the theme of how we collaborate, and again, I think maybe there's the domains of collaboration. So maybe it's not, I don't know what we call it, if it's in a corporate setting when you're paid. You are collaborating, we're in a partnership with kids. I mean, you have to collaborate to ensure that everyone feels good, and not always in the relationships I've had when I was younger, I didn't have the tools of communication or how to do that. And I don't actually feel I've got the tools of being a dad. I don't think I'm a very good dad. So it's like, you only get better at that by doing it more, I think. But it's like all these things, like the collaboration or the being a father or the being a good partner, we're not raised and taught any of that. And I certainly didn't have my parents weren't role models for it. So it's how do we, again, this comes back to seeing role models of good collaboration.
We have about 12 minutes or so until the top of the hour, but I was wondering if I could just insert two more ideas here. One is this notion that you think of people in World 3 as, in a sense, leveling up how they think, right? And it's similar to an idea that I've had many rants on in the past, and that is that in the capitalist society, especially the way even the economist theoreticians describe us, we're very selfish. We think only about I. We think about what I want, what I need, what I'm going to get out of a transaction, what I need to maximize for myself. Okay, so that's the model of the human being in this Western capitalist economic mode, right? So to me, it's obvious that that doesn't capture what a human being is. But yet, we've built all of this superstructure on those assumptions. I think, I'm using I now, that we are at an opportunity to evolve ourselves beyond that model, right? So if I'm here understanding, hey, Kayla's a human being, fully as rich, fully as engaged, fully as lively as I am, as Graham is, as any of the others that we know in society. If now my mind, my mental model is not just I, but inside here, there's a model of Kayla, there's a model of Graham, there's a model of Fleming, there's a model of every person that I interact with, and their richness of experience, desires, needs, connections, emotions, etc. That is a much more complicated mental model than just to have I, that one object in it. Okay. So if we want to increase our perspective, it takes a much more complicated mental model. And I'm not sure everybody wants to do that, right? It's not easy to say, how can this person be thinking that thought when I previously thought that person was a reasonable being? But if you ask that question and sort of go into the complexities, the experiences, the traumas, the desires, the joys, the memories, then it's possible to get that story. But if I'm only thinking I, and what I just heard from this person doesn't serve me, I go a different way. I just abandon this person. I just go and seek someone else from which I can extract value in some transaction and then optimize my own life. That mental model, I think, requires a leveling up. And although some are able to do it, I think we need a critical mass of people who can actually do that. And that leads to my second idea, which is the community of impact idea. And I know it's about 10 minutes till, but I'm hoping we can have an opportunity next week to continue on this flow, because I think the COI idea and everything we've talked about here makes a lot of sense. Over.
Are you supposed to, people do these kind of things now? I just, what I wrote down as you were saying that, Sam, so world one, you could say I, it's all about I, me. World two is counseling, social work. How are you? Tell me about you. It's a lot of more focus on you. And then the third is we. So if I'm going into a barbecue and my mind, what do I do here to optimize this experience for everyone? Like, are the kids, I see the kids aren't happy, maybe this guy looks, no one's talking to him, I'll go and talk to him. So I'm looking at everything that's happening from a we perspective. That requires a shift. And I think that's what you're saying, is it? That most people aren't in that, taking that perspective.
Which I think has to be done carefully. Because there's some people, I think, that come close to abusing that in conversations like this, where I'm saying something, perhaps, and then someone will say, but I'm holding space for blah, whatever blah is. If someone comes to me and says, I'm holding space for, okay, then I'm here saying, so are you saying that your space doesn't allow what I just said? I have that reaction. And that's a tricky thing. It's a very tricky thing, because there can be a protection of a space, just as you were indicating in that physical space. That happens. And in these virtual spaces, I'm sure there's an analog. There's a metalog. Sorry. Anyway, I forget the word. But sometimes that can feel like power over. If someone says, but I'm holding space for. I felt that very much in California. People use that phrase a lot. And it was usually in response to something I was trying to say. Anyway, I've really enjoyed this. It felt like I didn't know how it was going to go, because there wasn't a lot of prearranged structure, but we managed to connect a number of things together, even in just like 43 minutes or something. So
this is, sorry to interrupt, Sam. There was, just on what you said, there, a guy did a tweet, a guy who I like with the way he writes things, saying that just the way he said it was that when people meet, there's an opportunity, and people relate well, there's an opportunity for a different kind of mind to come in. A new mind is born. And that rather than bringing all your memory, and I want to say this, this, and this, and control it to get answers to my stuff, we're paying attention to the in-between. What arises in me, this is more dialogue and Bohemian dialogue stuff, is we're watching the process here. I really, the way that at the beginning when Kira just said safety and connection and the elders, just that created a sense of warmth for me, because that I realized that's I just like people to do that for me. Just say, how are you, Graham? And I'm feeling very sad, because you know how many people don't even ask me that. How are you? And I really want to know, not just, oh, you're fine, right? See, I'm off. Especially from the mother of my son, who has no interest in how I am. So it's like that kind of feeling. What's coming also to that is with safety and connection that you're saying, Kayla, comes, I think, the opportunity to be authentic, to be able to cry, because I can cry in front of you two. So that allows that to happen. So, and Nigel, my teacher in Andros, he's very good. It's gone. That's emotion. I'm not part of that. That happened. It's now. That was good. Thank you both for your presence to be that I can do that.
So I'd love to continue this next weekend.
Yep.
Oh.
Enjoy the GCC.
Yes, we will. Hopefully one day we'll see you there.
Okay.
We shall see. We shall see. A lot of it is the safety bit, the sorting out.
No, I get it. I get it.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Ciao.